asking a question about what McMullen and I were discussing this morning.
I did.
And you said to describe it. I said it was
actual
and I said it was fun. We had a fun discussion.
Well, how does he describe it?
And you said I wouldn't say it was fun.
No, I said would he? That's not what I said. I said how would he describe it?
All right, John,
you guys are debating right now.
There you go.
This is it.
John, how would you describe our conversation?
Stuck me into it.
Well, I'm like a first responder to conflict, so I enjoy conflict. I don't take anything personally, so I'm all about the debate.
Correct. And the comment that I made, this applies for all sports, but mostly basketball, in which I said I never believed in the Toronto Raptors at any point. And you would say that you don't get the obsession with the Ricky Bobby rules, that a team that wins 59, because I compared the Raptors to the 60-win Hawks, to which a team that has a very accomplished regular season is essentially sideswiped as nothing.
Yeah, I think that is an NBA thing, and I think there is. If you're not first or last, you either win the championship or you're a complete failure. And I just don't agree with that. I went back to the Michael Jordan era and talk about those Utah Jazz teams that were phenomenal with John Stockton, Karl Malone, those Charles Barkley Phoenix Suns teams. You know, it's easy to say. I mean, I didn't believe in them as well. I don't necessarily disagree with Mike not believing in the Toronto Raptors because when you have a generational talent in that sport, it's almost impossible to get through them. But that doesn't make you not a good basketball team. And I think somebody who wins 50 games 3 years in a row, like the Raptors, they deserve some credit, even though, obviously, they performed very, very poorly in this series.
Yeah. See, now I would say, because I was driving while this conversation was going on, somewhat, the part of it, like started at my house and then I was in the car, so I couldn't get my point over as well because I don't text and drive. But I would say I believe less in the Raptors because your point was it's not that you don't believe in the Raptors. You believe that much in LeBron James. And I would say I agree and I see where you're going with that. However, I have seen LeBron James lose in my life and believe that it can happen. I just don't believe that that team could do it.
Well, sure, and I think the Warriors would be the favorites, or will likely be the favorites if it's another rematch, and they'll be expected to win the NBA title if it's the Cavaliers. So I'm not arguing that he can't be beaten. He's one man, although he is human, I think, the way he's played. I'm not sure about that. But if he plays at the level he played in that Raptors series, I don't know if anybody can beat him. And let's face it, this is one of the worst supporting casts he's ever had. He's never played at a higher level. And for any team in the East, I mean, all you got to see is how many finals he's been in a row. They haven't been able to figure out the LeBron James equation. I don't think they're going to figure it out until the descent starts. And obviously it'll happen at some point. Age catches up to everybody. It'll catch up to him. But until that point, look, there's a roadblock. And whether you go at it the Raptors way, the Sixers way, you're not getting by LeBron James the way he's playing right now. So I guess my point is, hey, why not win 59 games? And then if something happens, whether it's an injury, you're in a position to take advantage of that rather than say, well, we can't beat this guy, so we're not going to compete.
Look, I'm not advocating not win 59 games. My point was more Toronto essentially has been down the rabbit hole a few times and elected to continue to go down the rabbit hole with the same group of guys. All I was saying was I didn't believe in them when they won 51, 53, 58, whatever it was. For them to continue to go down with the same group, why would I change my opinion on who I believe they were?
Because it only takes 1 year. And it happened to the Sixers we talk about, you know, the last time they lost to the Celtics in the playoffs, but they were in a Game 7, and they were in the game with about, I think, 7 minutes left. And obviously the Celtics went on to win. Now, the only reason the Sixers were there is because Derrick Rose got hurt in the earlier round. But that kind of stuff happens. Now, they weren't good enough to take advantage of that situation and get all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they were close. And that's why I advocate competing, even in the NBA, even when Michael Jordan's in front of you, even when LeBron James is in front of you, or even when the Golden State Warriors are in front of you, because you never know what's going to happen. But there's this mentality that, and it is an NBA thing more than any other sport, that if you don't win, you're completely unsuccessful. I would argue a team that's won 56, 51, 59, 4 out of 5 division titles, that's pretty good, especially when they don't have a history of winning before this little 5-year spurt.
I would agree. Look, I'm not, and maybe it sounds like I'm just totally disregarding them. I mean, I think it's fair to say I didn't believe that they were legitimately. I don't know, but that's not saying that they're lousy, though. Just saying I didn't believe in them doesn't mean I think that they stink. You know what I'm saying?
No, and I get it, and that's where I say I think it's more of, you know, they're a good basketball team, but you just know they can't get by a LeBron James team, and that's what I said. So I think it's more of how you frame it, and either way you frame it, it comes down to the belief. And by the way, you should believe. As I said, these playoffs, and we're not even to the Eastern Conference Finals yet, mind you. Or never mind the NBA Finals, has nudged me over the finish line. I am now in the camp of LeBron James is the greatest basketball player that ever lived. What he is able to do.
And that's based on them beating Toronto.
No, it's based on them likely going, and we'll see. I think Boston has a chance because they have better athletes, and it might be a similar issue with the Sixers. It might be a more difficult matchup, but I expect the Cavaliers to beat the Celtics, and they'll be in the finals again. And this is, you take LeBron off that team, that's not even a playoff team. That's a 20-25 win team. And you look at the numbers, you look at how well-rounded he is, he does everything. There's never been a player like this before. Look, a lot of it depends on your definition. If you just want to talk about championships, Bill Russell's the best player that ever lived. If you just want to talk about closers, Michael Jordan's the best player that ever lived. But if you want to talk about the most well-rounded basketball player, that's LeBron James.
No Wilt, John McMullen, no Wilt Chamberlain in there. You did hit Bill Russell and MJ, but how can you not include Wilt?
Well, I would put Wilt as second or third. I mean, in mine, I would have LeBron first, Michael second, Wilt third. But again, people always, one of the criticisms of LeBron is that Michael has more titles. Well, if that's your definition, then Bill Russell. That's why I brought up Bill Russell. Bill Russell's better than Michael Jordan. I don't think he is. But if that's the definition you want to use, why does it not count with Bill Russell? So I think, people like who they like, and they have the right to their opinion. But as far as doing everything on a basketball court, it's tough to argue against LeBron James.
Yeah. John McMullen's with us here. Just a little insight on some of our conversation earlier this morning. And by the way, there are teams, like I thought that the Pacers could have won Game 7. I don't know that I said I think they will, but I thought I at least believed that they could. Whereas I had no belief that the Raptors had any shot to win that series.
Well, I didn't think the Raptors were going to win this series. I didn't think they'd get swept either. I would say I'm less surprised. I'm less surprised that they got swept. But I think if you look at what LeBron did in that series, it's Oscar Robertson. That's another name I haven't mentioned. It's Oscar Robertson-like numbers. It's just numbers you don't see. The efficacy, the shooting percentage. He's, like I said before, this current run, by anyone's estimation, unless you know nothing about professional basketball, he's a top 5 player of all time. And then you see what he's done, and he's never played at a higher level. It's really kind of amazing as far as the efficacy part of it goes. I mean, just how impactful he is on both sides of the floor. And remember that Game 3, the Raptors were in it, and he makes that ridiculous shot to win the game at the buzzer. And look at the supporting cast. It's not good. It really isn't.
No, it's not. And I think it's more, and we talked about this this morning, which I think it's more of a problem with the sport, is that you only believe in a handful of teams. That's the problem with that sport, is we enjoy debating and going back and forth, but when push comes to shove, you believe in LeBron James, Golden State, and that's virtually it. There's a handful of people who may think that Houston has a shot.
Yeah, you can argue Houston, but you're right. I mean, it's 3. I think Boston would have been in that conversation had they been healthy. But at most, you're talking about 4 teams. I think it is a problem. And if you look at talent, again, if you take LeBron James out of the equation, it's really 3 teams as far as talent up and down a roster goes. So there's no question that's an NBA problem. It always has been, because if you have the one true superstar, and it's been proven time and time again for 50 years, you build dynasties and you have a chance to dominate that league. And it becomes a situation where great teams are roadblocked. With the Sixers Celtics playing each other, I always tell people there's been kind of this false narrative as the years have gone by about the Celtics-Lakers. Remember, that's East versus West. The best rivalry in sports was Celtics-Sixers, Larry Bird, Dr. J. That was the best rivalry in sports. And there was a third team in the Eastern Conference nobody talks about. And it's one of the reasons the Lakers were able to dominate that frame, because the East teams, the Celtics, the Sixers, the Bucks, they would beat the you-know-what out of each other, and the Lakers would coast to the finals every year. And it made things easier for them. And nobody talks about the Milwaukee Bucks, and they were a great, great, great team.
Yeah, John, and by the way, there is a couple of quick football notes that we'll throw your way here. Big time, not big time, but I mean, Mark Ingram suspended for 4 games, violating the league's PED policy. Kind of came out of nowhere here. I mean, we're in what? You say there's only like one time a year when these guys get checked on, but apparently Mark Ingram's going to miss the first 4.
No, not for PEDs. That's more serious testing. The substance abuse, specifically the marijuana policy, you only get tested once a year if you're not in sort of a more serious, in other words, you haven't failed to test before. You only get tested once a year, and it starts ironically on April 20th, which I always think is a joke on everyone. And then sort of when you know that you've been tested once, and that test could come May 1st, it could come as late as August in training camp, but as a player, you know it's got to be done by the end of training camp. So basically, you have that window from April 20th to the end of training camp. You're only going to get tested once. And if you get tested, you can smoke weed the rest of the year all you want. And trust me, the NFL, a lot of people smoke marijuana. So it's kind of disingenuous when you read some of these stories about lobbying to get the NFL to allow marijuana smoking, because only the the people who really have a serious problem are the ones who get caught. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because if you are that hooked on something, and people can talk about the addictiveness of anything. It doesn't have to be drugs. It doesn't have to be marijuana. It could be the internet. It could be whatever. If people can't handle it, they probably need some help.
Speaking of running backs, former Raven Terrance West visiting with the Eagles today. So a very crowded Eagle backfield just got another name entered to the depth chart.
Yeah, and you look at May of last year, that's when the Eagles brought on LeGarrette Blount. I'm a little surprised. I mean, this team is always looking to improve. They have a lot of bodies already at the running back position. They only have $1.1 million under the salary cap as we speak right now. They haven't signed a draft choice. So there's got to be other dominoes falling. If they were to add somebody like Terrance West, there's still trades, possibility Michael Kendricks, something of that nature. But the Eagles, you have to give them credit. They're always looking to improve, and they did something similar to this last year, as I said, by bringing in Blount so late. So it's not surprised that no surprise they're kicking the tires on Terrance West.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. John, with the latest NFL stuff, get more sports. And, of course, you can check them out at 97.3ESPN.com with the Eagles stuff. When does the Eagles have what, rookie camp going on, or mini camp?
Yeah, rookie camp starts Friday, so they'll have to finally announce their undrafted free agent signings. Now, those have all been reported. You can find them on 973ESPN.com. But they haven't officially announced them yet, and that's because they don't have to be in officially until Friday. And that will be Doug Peterson, the first of really many press conferences of this season. Really the kickoff to the entire 2018 season starts Friday.
Yep, and what's Peterson speaking Friday, correct?
Yes.
All right, so we'll have that information. So we'll have some definite Eagle stuff on Friday, and hopefully a Sixers game as well. Sports Bash Live. John McMullen, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, and check out John's NFL column at Get More Sports. Follow them at Get_More_Sports, and John McMullen is at JF McMullen. All right, man. Go Raptors.
All right. Embrace the debate, Pete.